No human was meant to be on the storm ridge. Everyone knew that, especially Elias. The ridge was old in the way bones were old. Black stone clawed at the sky, split by veins of crystal that hummed when the wind rose. Dragons nested there not because it was comfortable, but because nothing else dared to come close. The elders said the storms were a warning. The scorch marks said the same. Elias had come anyway. He hadn't planned to stay. Just shelter for the night, patch the tear in his cloak, and descend at dawn. The clouds had other ideas. Thunder rolled in low and heavy, the kind that pressed against the chest. Rain came sideways, sharp as thrown gravel. By the time Elias spotted the shallow cave half hidden by stone, he was soaked through and shaking. That was when he heard it. A sound too soft to be thunder. Too fragile to be wind. A crack. Elias froze. The cave smelled of ozone and ash. At the back, half buried in straw and scorched rock, lay a dragon egg. He knew instantly what it was. Everyone did. Smooth, dark as obsidian, threaded with faint glowing lines that pulsed slowly, like breath. It was smaller than the stories said. No taller than his knee. And it was broken. A thin fracture ran across its surface. Another crack followed, louder this time. The glow inside flared, uneven. No, Elias whispered, panic rising. No, no. Dragons did not abandon their eggs. Ever. If one was alone, it meant something had gone terribly wrong. Another crack. A shard fell away. The storm outside screamed. Instinct overrode sense. Elias crossed the cave in 3 strides and knelt, shrugging off his pack. The egg shuddered violently now, rocking against the stone. If it fell, if it split wrong. He cupped it without thinking. The shell was hot. Not burning, alive. Heat soaked into his palms, steady and deep, like standing near a forge that knew your name. The moment his hands touched the shell, the glow inside surged. The fracture widened. Elias sucked in a breath and pulled the egg against his chest, bracing it like a wounded child. Rainwater dripped from his hair onto the shell. His heart hammered loud enough he was sure anything nearby could hear it. The egg split open. Not explosively. Not violently. It unfolded. Pieces of shell peeled back as if guided by invisible hands, revealing something small, dark, and trembling within. A wet sound, a soft hiss, then a tiny claw hooked into Elias's sleeve. He went still. A head emerged, no larger than his fist. Scales glossy and black, still slick with warmth. 2 eyes opened. They were not fiery. Not glowing. They were a deep, molten gold, wide, unfocused, searching. The hatchling made a sound. Not a roar. Not even a chirp. A breathy, fragile squeak. Then it pressed its forehead into Elias's chest. The world seemed to pause. The storm outside faltered, thunder rolling farther away. The heat between his arms intensified, but it wasn't dangerous, it was anchoring. The hatchling's claws tightened, clumsy but determined, gripping cloth and skin alike. Elias couldn't move. He didn't know the rituals. Didn't know the words humans were supposed to say when standing near dragonfire, let alone holding one of their young. All he knew was that the creature shaking in his arms trusted him completely. "You're supposed to fly," he murmured, voice barely sound. "You're supposed to go." The hatchling didn't look up. Instead, it curled closer. Outside the cave, the crystals in the stone began to sing. Low. Resonant. A warning note carried on the wind. Far above the ridge, ancient eyes snapped open. Dragons felt it, the wrongness of it. A hatching without witnesses. A first bond without flame or sky. A dragon heartbeat sinking not to the wind currents, but to something smaller. Human. Elias felt it too, though he didn't understand what it meant. A pressure in the air. A sense of being noticed. He tightened his arms instinctively as the hatchling trembled again, letting out a faint, distressed sound. Elias bowed his head over it, sheltering it from the cold, from the noise, from whatever was coming. "I've got you," he whispered, the promise slipping out before fear could stop it. "I won't let anything happen to you." The hatchling stilled. Its eyes closed. And somewhere in the storm-dark sky, the dragons began to turn back toward the ridge. Realizing, too late, that something irreversible had already happened. Elias did not sleep. The storm passed sometime before dawn, but the weight in the air remained, thick, watchful, as if the mountain itself had opened an eye. He sat with his back against the cave wall, cloak wrapped around a small, warm shape pressed to his chest. The hatchling had not moved since it settled there. It breathed, slow and steady. Each breath carried a faint warmth that seeped through Elias's clothes and into his skin. The little dragon's heartbeat was fast, far too fast, but it was in rhythm with his own now, as if the two had negotiated a compromise neither fully understood. When Elias tried to shift, the hatchling tightened its grip. Tiny claws dug in, not sharp enough to break skin, but sharp enough to be felt. A warning. A plea. Easy, Elias whispered. I'm not going anywhere. The pressure eased. That should have terrified him. Instead, something in his chest loosened, a knot he hadn't known he carried. He'd been alone a long time, long enough that silence felt normal. Long enough that danger was easier than attachment. The dragon did not care. At first light, the cave warmed just enough for Elias to risk moving his arms. The hatchling stirred, lifting its head with effort. Its eyes opened, unfocused but bright, tracking his face with surprising intent. It sniffed. Then sneezed. A tiny spark popped from its nostrils and fizzled harmlessly against Elias's sleeve. He barked a laugh before he could stop himself. All right, he said softly. So that's how it is. He reached slowly for his canteen, careful not to startle it. The hatchling watched every movement, eyes narrowing, not in aggression, but calculation. When Elias tipped a little water into his palm and offered it, the hatchling sniffed again, then lapped clumsily. It made a pleased sound. Low. Vibrating. Elias swallowed. You're not supposed to trust me, he murmured. You don't even know me. The hatchling leaned forward and pressed its forehead to his throat. That was when the air shifted. The crystals embedded in the cave walls brightened, their hum deepening into something like a distant horn. Elias felt it ripple through his bones, an announcement carried on stone and wind. They're coming. He knew that without knowing how he knew it. The hatchling felt it too. Its body tensed instantly, pressing tighter against him. A thin line of heat traced along its scales, not flaring outward but inward, like a fire banked behind a door. No, Elias whispered, instinctively shielding it with his arms. It's all right. I've got you. The cave darkened. A massive shadow passed across the entrance, blotting out the morning light. Then another. A presence settled outside, not one, but many. Ancient. Heavy. The air tasted like smoke and lightning. A voice rolled into the cave, not spoken aloud but felt. Step away, human. Elias's heart hammered, but his feet did not move. I can't, he said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. It won't let me. Silence followed. Then a sharper pressure, probing, like talons testing stone. It should not be bonded. I didn't do anything, Elias said. It hatched. It reached for me. Another presence brushed his thoughts, cool, cutting, old. He felt examined, measured, and found deeply inconvenient. Dragons do not imprint on ground-bound things. The hatchling let out a small, distressed sound. Heat spiked. Elias reacted without thought. He bowed his head, pressing his forehead to the hatchling's crown, wrapping his body around it. Hey, he murmured. I'm here. You're safe. The heat settled. Outside, something like confusion rippled through the gathered dragons. They tried again. A pull, not physical, but instinctive, tugged at the hatchling, urging it upward, outward, toward sky and flame and blood memory. The hatchling twitched, claws flexing. Then it buried its face in Elias's chest and refused. The rejection hit the elders like a slap. Impossible. Elias exhaled slowly. His hands shook now, but he didn't let go. You feel it, don't you? He said quietly, not sure who he was speaking to anymore. It's not choosing me because I'm strong. I'm not. I can't fly. I can't breathe fire. He looked down at the small, trembling creature in his arms. But I can hold it, he continued. I can stay. I can keep it warm. The mountain held its breath. The oldest presence withdrew slightly, wary now. Safety, it tasted the word through Elias's thoughts like something sour. Dragons understood power. Dominance. Fire and fear. They did not understand this. The voice returned, colder. This bond is wrong. It will be corrected. Elias felt fear bloom sharp and bright, but beneath it, something harder formed. No, he said. Not loudly. Not bravely. Just firmly. The hatchling's heartbeat steadied again. Outside the cave, wings shifted. Scales scraped stone. The elders pulled back to argue among themselves, their confusion bleeding into the air like smoke. Elias didn't hear their words. All his attention was on the small dragon breathing against his chest, on the quiet, unshakable truth settling into his bones. Dragons were meant to fly away. This one had learned something else first. And it was not letting go. They did not give Elias time to prepare. The argument among the elders lasted less than a heartbeat by dragon reckoning, and far too long by human standards. The pressure in the air thickened again, heavier than before, until breathing felt like pulling smoke into his lungs. The hatchling stirred, sensing the shift. Its claws tightened, tiny talons biting through fabric this time. Heat pulsed beneath its scales, uneven and anxious. "Hey," Elias whispered, stroking the ridge of its neck with 2 fingers. "Easy. I'm here." The reassurance worked, for the hatchling. It did nothing for the dragons outside. The cave mouth flared white. Fire did not enter, not yet, but the threat of it flooded the space, a wall of heat and authority pressing inward. Elias felt his skin prickle as ancient will settled on him like a sentence already decided. "This ends now." The voice was singular this time. "Older than the ridge. Older than the storms. The hatchling will be reclaimed." Elias swallowed. His mouth was dry, throat tight. "You can't," he said, the words scraping their way out. "It won't come." "It must." A pressure seized the hatchling again, not a suggestion now, but a command. Blood memory surged through the small body in Elias's arms, instincts flaring to life: sky, flame, flight, obedience. The hatchling cried out. A sharp, thin sound that pierced straight through Elias's chest. "No," he said, louder now. "Stop." The hatchling thrashed weakly, caught between 2 truths. Its wings, still soft, still folded wrong, trembled as if trying to unfurl. Heat spiked dangerously, sparks crawling across its scales. Elias felt it slipping. Not physically. Emotionally. He didn't think. He acted. He shifted, standing fully now despite the crushing presence outside, and stepped forward, placing himself squarely between the hatchling and the mouth of the cave. Firelight washed over his back. "If you want it," Elias said, voice shaking but unbroken, "you'll have to go through me." Silence slammed down. Then, a sound none of the dragons expected. Laughter. Low. Crackling. Dangerous. "Human," the elder voice said, almost amused. "You misunderstand your place." "Maybe," Elias replied. His legs trembled, but he didn't step aside. "But you misunderstand yours." The heat intensified. Stone behind him warmed, then glowed faintly. "This creature is dragonkind," the voice thundered. "Bound by law older than your species. It cannot remain ground-bound. It cannot be allowed to be malformed." Elias looked down at the hatchling. It was shaking hard now, eyes squeezed shut, claws dug deep into his shirt as if he were the only solid thing left in the world. "Malform means wrong," Elias said quietly. "You're wrong about it." A ripple of unease passed through the gathered elders. "Look at it," Elias continued, words coming faster now, fueled by fear and something sharper. "It's not broken. It's scared. And instead of teaching it how to fly, you're trying to rip it away from the only thing that makes sense to it." Fire surged closer. "Step aside," the elder commanded. Elias shook his head. The hatchling's heartbeat stuttered. Something inside Elias snapped into place. "No," he said again, this time without fear. "I won't." For a heartbeat, the world balanced on a knife's edge. Then the elder did something Elias hadn't expected. It tested him. The heat vanished. In its place came cold. A sudden emptiness, like standing on a cliff edge in darkness. Elias's thoughts wavered as something ancient reached into him, not to harm, but to see. It rifled through his memories. Lonely roads. Quiet camps. Mended tools and shared food. The way Elias stayed when others left. The way he held dying things until they were no longer afraid. The elder recoiled. "You are persistent." Elias huffed a breath. "I don't quit on things that depend on me." The presence shifted, no longer amused. "And if it costs you your life?" Elias didn't hesitate. "Then that's the price." The hatchling went still. Its eyes opened slowly. Gold met gold. For the first time, the heat in its body didn't surge outward. It settled. Then, carefully, deliberately, the hatchling turned its head and faced the cave entrance. A soft sound escaped it. Not a cry. A choice. The elders felt it. The mountain felt it. The bond tightened, not explosively, not dramatically, but with quiet finality. A thread anchored itself deep in Elias's chest, warm and unyielding. The elder withdrew fully now, presence coiling back like a storm denied release. "This bond violates tradition," it said, colder than before. "You will be given one chance, human." Elias's heart pounded. One chance for what? To walk away. The words echoed in the cave. Leave the hatchling. Descend the ridge. Never return. The bond will weaken. The dragon will forget. The hatchling stiffened, claws digging in again. Elias closed his eyes. Walking away would be easy. He'd done it before. From towns. From people. From anything that hurt too much to keep holding. He looked down at the small dragon clinging to him, at the creature that had hatched into his arms as if it had always known where it belonged. I won't, he said softly. The elder's presence hardened. Then you choose exile. Elias nodded. I choose it. The fire outside dimmed. The dragons did not attack. They did something worse. They left. One by one, the immense presences lifted, wings beating air into motion as shadows retreated from the ridge. The pressure eased, leaving the cave suddenly quiet, too quiet. Elias sank to his knees, breath coming hard. The hatchling relaxed against him, heat gentle now, steady and calm. Somewhere deep in the mountain, something ancient shifted its understanding of the world. And Elias finally realized the truth. He had not stolen a dragon. He had been chosen. And nothing, sky, fire, or law, was going to change that. Exile was quieter than Elias expected. The dragons did not scorch the ridge or collapse the cave. They did not mark him with flame or curse. They simply withdrew, a retreat so complete it left the mountain feeling hollow, as if a great weight had lifted and taken the air with it. Elias remained kneeling long after the last shadow passed. Only when the hatchling shifted did he realize how badly his legs were shaking. All right, he whispered hoarsely. All right, we're still here. The hatchling lifted its head, eyes clearer now, still molten gold, but steadier, more aware. It studied Elias's face with unnerving intensity, then made a low, content sound that vibrated through his ribs. Warmth spread through Elias's chest. Not heat. Comfort. They stayed on the ridge for 3 days. Elias didn't know why he expected the hatchling to weaken without the elders, but it didn't. If anything, it grew more active. It learned quickly how to balance on uncertain legs, how to fold and unfold its wings without tangling them, how to curl itself just right against Elias's side when it slept. It followed him everywhere. When Elias gathered kindling, the hatchling waddled after him. When he boiled water, it sat dangerously close to the fire, fascinated by the flames. When he tried, once, to step out of the cave alone, it panicked so violently the air shimmered with uncontrolled heat. Elias didn't try again. He learned the limits fast. The hatchling ate sparingly, preferring warmth and proximity over food. It slept often, always touching him, tail wrapped around his wrist, claws resting on his chest, forehead pressed beneath his chin. And when it dreamed, the cave filled with faint light. On the 4th morning, the dragons returned. Not all of them. 3 shapes descended from the clouds, massive but restrained, landing well away from the cave mouth. No fire. No threat. Just presence. Elias stood slowly, heart pounding, and positioned himself in front of the hatchling out of habit more than strategy. A younger voice reached him this time, still immense, but less absolute. We observe. That's new, Elias muttered. The hatchling peeked around his leg, curiosity overcoming caution. A faint glow rippled along its scales, not flaring but pulsing, measured. The dragons noticed. A low murmur passed between them. It regulates its fire, one observed. Without training. Elias frowned. Is that unusual? It is, unheard of. The eldest of the 3 shifted, lowering its massive head until one enormous eye aligned with the cave entrance. Its gaze was sharp, not cruel, but searching. The hatchling should burn uncontrolled, it said. Fear and instinct alone guide first flame. The hatchling chirped softly and leaned against Elias's calf. Elias said nothing. He didn't need to. The dragon watched the interaction for a long moment. Then, tentatively, it tested the air again. Not with command, not with force. Just a presence brushing against the hatchling's awareness. The hatchling reacted instantly. It stepped forward. Not aggressively. Protectively. A thin, shimmering barrier of heat spread outward, stopping well short of Elias but firmly between him and the dragons. The air hummed, pressure building, but still controlled. Focused. Elias stared. So, it can do that, he murmured. The dragons recoiled a fraction, stunned. Its shields, one whispered. Not itself. The human. The eldest went very still. Why? Elias swallowed. Because it trusts me. The dragon's eye narrowed. Trust is not instinct. No, Elias agreed quietly. It's learned. Silence stretched. The eldest drew back slightly, reassessing, not Elias, but the hatchling. Its voice, when it returned, carried something new. Unease. Humans teach restraint to their young, it said slowly. Through weakness. Elias bristled. Through care. The dragon did not contradict him. Instead, it said, dragons teach dominance. The hatchling's barrier flickered, then settled again, stable. Elias felt something shift in the air. Not hostility. Not surrender. Curiosity. The dragons stayed for hours, watching. They observed how the hatchling mirrored Elias's breathing when agitated. How it calmed when he spoke softly. How it did not lash out even when startled, but waited. Measured. One of the younger dragons finally spoke, disbelief bleeding through its tone. It delays its flame, to decide. Elias nodded. Yeah. Humans do that too. The eldest withdrew its gaze from the hatchling and focused on Elias fully for the first time. You do not command it. No. You do not fear it. I respect it. The dragon considered that. You are fragile, it said. Not cruelly. Factually. Elias snorted. I know. And yet it listens to you. The hatchling nudged Elias's leg, as if offended on his behalf. A rumble, not laughter, but something close, echoed from the eldest. We forgot something, it admitted at last. Elias waited. We believed flight made us free, the dragon continued. Fire made us strong. Fear made us eternal. Its eye flicked back to the hatchling. But you have taught it another way to survive. Elias felt a tightness in his chest. I didn't teach it anything special. I just stayed. The eldest drew back, wings flexing. That may be the difference. The dragons did not demand the hatchling. They did not revoke Elias's exile. They left again, but not in rejection this time. In thought. As the air cleared and the mountain settled, Elias sank onto a rock, exhaustion finally catching him. The hatchling climbed into his lap without hesitation, curling up and releasing a contented hum. Elias rested his forehead against its warm scales. Looks like we surprised them, he murmured. The hatchling yawned, tiny, fanged, harmless, and settled deeper into him. Far above the ridge, the dragons circled, disturbed by a truth they could no longer ignore. Humans did not make dragons weaker. They taught them why strength didn't always need to be used. The first time the dragon flew, Elias thought he was losing it forever. It happened without ceremony. No warning. No build-up. They were no longer on Storm Ridge. Exile had pushed them down into a broad, quiet valley where the wind moved gently through tall grass and the sky felt wide instead of sharp. Elias had built a small home there, stone, timber, patience. A place meant for staying. The dragon had grown. Not huge. Not fearsome. But solid. Its wings were no longer soft and folded wrong. They were strong now, layered with dark scales that caught the sun like cooled embers. Its fire was no longer erratic, it burned when it chose to. It had learned that from Elias. That morning, Elias was repairing a fence when the dragon climbed onto a boulder nearby. He glanced up, half smiling, and froze. The dragon spread its wings. Hey, Elias said quickly, standing. You don't have to. The dragon looked back at him. Not frightened. Not hesitant. Certain. Then it stepped forward and jumped. For a heartbeat, Elias's world collapsed. The dragon dropped fast, wings fumbling for purchase. Elias took a step forward, heart in his throat, already imagining the sound of impact. The wings caught the air. The dragon dipped, corrected, and lifted. It flew. Not high. Not far. Just a wide, clumsy arc over the grass. The wind carried it, awkward but steady, until it landed hard and rolled once before springing upright. Elias laughed, breathless and shaking. You did it. The dragon didn't roar. Didn't flare fire. It ran back to him. Leapt up and pressed its forehead against Elias's chest, heat thrumming with excitement and something like relief. You came back, Elias whispered, voice breaking. You flew, and you came back. The dragons arrived weeks later. Not with fire. Not with judgment. They descended at the edge of the valley, vast shapes settling carefully so as not to scar the land. Elias stood his ground, the dragon at his side now, larger than before, eyes clear and calm. The eldest spoke, its voice deep but no longer hostile. It flies. Yes, Elias said. It returns. Yes. A pause. Why? Elias looked down at the dragon. It leaned into his leg, steady and warm. Because this is home, he said simply. The dragon lifted its head and released a low, resonant sound, not a challenge, not a call to the sky. A declaration. The elders felt it ripple through the air. It is not bound, one said quietly. No, Elias replied. It chooses. The eldest lowered its massive head, an ancient gesture, never before given to a human. Then this one walks a new path, it said. Skyborn. Ground-taught. The dragon spread its wings and launched into the air once more, flying higher this time, stronger. It circled the valley, sunlight gleaming along its scales. Then it descended. Landed beside Elias. Always beside him. As the dragons rose and vanished into the clouds, Elias knelt and rested his forehead against the dragon's warm neck. You were never meant to be chained, he murmured. Not to the sky. Not to me. The dragon huffed softly and nudged him forward. Together, they turned toward the valley, toward a life built not on fear or fire, but choice. And far above, among creatures who had ruled the skies since the world was young, a quiet truth took root. Dragons may be born to fly. But sometimes, they stay.